Hello everybody and welcome to Decoding the WSL, the podcast dedicated to the stats and facts in the WSL. The international break has been and gone, which means club football is back, which means we've got a fresh weekend of football to look ahead to. Hallelujah. I'm going to be giving you all the numbers and the stats you need ahead of this weekend's fixtures. I'm your host, Biccarino. Yes, here we are. Hello again, listener. It's been a week or so since I last spoke to you. There have been some international games with England having a couple of friendlies and then obviously some Euros qualifiers for the other home nations. There was also a little ceremony in France with the Ballon d'Or. It was nice for the men to invite the women along this year, wasn't it? Aitana Bonmati won for the second time running, the second player to ever do that after her teammate Lex Mateus. And on the men's side, it was Rodri that won it, which was surprisingly controversial, I think, for anyone outside of Real Madrid anyway. I don't think there was too much controversy in it, but that's how it went. There was a number of WSL players near the top, with Mariona Caldente being the best player now playing in the WSL at number 8. But yeah, that's all done now, and we're back to WSL action. So let's have a little look ahead to the matches coming up this weekend. All the matches this week are on Sunday, and it starts off with Alessia Russo returning to the club where she made her name as Arsenal visit the unbeaten Man United. Brighton and Leicester meet on Sunday as well, a matchup that's often filled with goals. There were 9 in the 2 league games last season. Palace return to Selhurst Park, where they'll be hosting league leaders Man City. There's the London derby as West Ham take the relatively short trip to go and face Spurs in a bottom half clash. Villa look to get their first win of the season as they welcome the team Missy Bocan's left in the summer, Liverpool. And in the final match of the weekend, Everton looking to score their first goal of the season. They'll be hoping to do that against, checks notes, the champions, Chelsea. Oh well. But we'll start off with the first game of the day and look ahead to Man United Arsenal. Yes, this is the first game of the weekend, Sunday 12:30 at Leigh Sports Village and live on BBC Two. A couple of players facing their former clubs in this one. Alessia Russo, as already mentioned, but also Janssen. Transferred to Man United this summer, but obviously used to play at Arsenal many moons ago. It's 3rd versus 5th in the table, and I think most people would agree in saying that these are the 2 teams that are likely to be fighting for a 3rd place spot come the end of the season. I think a lot of people, including myself, thought Arsenal might finish in the top 2, but it's looking like Chelsea and Man City have comfortably got those 2 places wrapped up with the form they're starting off with this season and will probably continue with. So Arsenal, Man United. Arsenal not looking as good as expected, but Man United looking a lot better than expected this season. I think they'll be the 2 fighting for 3rd place come the end of the season. The last time these 2 sides met was Arsenal 3, Man United 1 back in February. A couple of the goal scorers in this one, Chloe Lacasse making it 2-0 and Lucia Garcia making it 3-1 at the death, aren't actually at the clubs anymore, so they're going to have to look for new goal scorers this time, although both sides are having no problem scoring goals so far this season. Man United are 8-0 at home in the WSL this season, so 8 goals scored and none conceded, which is very good considering we're not very far into the season. Arsenal have scored in their last 8 WSL away games, so one of those streaks is going to get finished. It's either going to be Man United conceding at home for the first time or Arsenal not keeping up their streak of scoring in away games. Man United are yet to score after the 60th minute in the WSL this season, which is a stat I was quite surprised at. They've seemed very dominant in games so far, and I would expect them, their sort of distribution of it to set up and spread out. But no, not the case. They have not scored after the hour mark so far this season, potentially because they haven't been tested and haven't necessarily needed to. They're not exactly throwing the kitchen sink at their matches. They're getting into a lead and trying to maintain it towards the end of the game rather than trying to go for more, which I think says a little bit about the tactics that Mark Skinner is implementing this season and potentially slightly different tactics than what used to be. As I mentioned, Man United are still unbeaten in the league and have only conceded 1 goal so far. That 1 goal conceded is the lowest in the WSL. Arsenal, however, as well as Man United yet to concede at home, Arsenal are yet to concede away from home. In fact, they've got the lowest expected goals against in the league in away games, which is 0.9. And in away games, they have the best expected goal difference at plus 2.1. So they have created 2.1 XG more than they have conceded in away games this season. Arsenal have won both of their away games so far. No team has won more than 2. The 2 goalkeepers in this game, or who we expect to play in goal if it is Fallon Joyce and Daphne Van Domselaar are the only two keepers that have had 3 clean sheets so far this season, both in 4 appearances. So that'll be interesting to see which one, if either, can extend that. Salim Bazet is having a very good season. I think if you've watched any Man United or listened to any other podcasts, or even myself, you'll have heard people raving about her, and you can see why. She's the only player in the league with 3 assists so far, and she's really thriving in that sort of right back position, which wasn't on my bingo card for the season. I don't know about you. Stina Blackstenius is also having a pretty good season when she's on. She's accumulated the most XG per 90 minutes in the league at 0.78. So per 90 minutes that she's on the pitch, she's expecting to score sort of 3 out of 4 times, which is pretty good and is the best in the league. She's creating really good, or getting into really good goal scoring opportunities for herself, albeit she probably needs some more minutes to actually be able to put those away. Looking ahead to how I think this game's going to go, I don't have a specific, I definitely think this is going to happen. I think it's going to be close. I can't imagine either team winning by 2 or more goals. I think there's only going to be 1 goal in it, if that. Arsenal will probably have a bit more of the ball, but not necessarily the better chances. We know that Arsenal have not been very good at performing against their XG so far this season. I think they're in the bottom 3 for that. I know Everton are the worst, but Arsenal aren't that much better. So they'll probably create more chances than Man United, but Man United are a bit more clinical than Arsenal. I'm going to go for a 1-1. On to the second match of the day. It is Brighton against Leicester. This one is obviously also on Sunday. This one is 2 o'clock at the Broadfield Stadium in Crawley and live on YouTube. It's 4th v 7th in the league. Surprisingly mid-table, I think. Given the results so far, it certainly seems like Brighton have been much the better team in the WSL so far, but that bottom of the table is so close. Between Leicester and West Ham in last place, actually, there's only 3 points, so could be literally one game that could swing anyone in that bottom half. As I mentioned in the intro, it's been a fixture with a lot of goals recently. There were 9 goals in the 2 matches last season. Turland getting 3 of them, Jutta Rantzler getting 2, Lena Peetman getting 2, Katie Robinson getting 1, and then Lisa Kopp own goal being the other one. So apart from Lisa Kopp, who got the own goal, none of those players will be playing in this match because Turland and Robinson have both moved on, and Jutta Rantzler and Lena Peetman are both out injured. Brighton are unbeaten at home in the WSL this season so far. They've played 3 matches, 2 wins and a draw. Talking of draws, that's kind of what I want to talk about with Leicester because they're doing that quite a lot. You can tell that because they've only lost 1 of their 5 away games in the WSL, of their last 5 anyway, that is. But they've also only won 1 of their last 12. So there's a lot of drawing going on there, which is partly that they are struggling to score a lot of goals, but also that they're very good at keeping the other team at bay. Brighton are yet to score in the first 15 minutes of a game this season, which is surprising. But here's a good stat for you. Brighton have scored more goals in the last 15 minutes than Leicester have scored at all in the WSL this season. So Brighton are leaving it late sometimes, but in those areas, they're actually outscoring Leicester in, 6 times as many minutes. Brighton have had the most home goals in the WSL this season with 9. No other team has more than 6. They've also got the best take-on success rate at 54%, which is actually quite high. I know it's only just over 50, but it's not the average isn't 50%, it is lower. They've had 55 successful take-ons, which is also the most. Leicester, however, on the other side of that, are the best team at defending take-ons, so those sort of 1v1 situations. They have put in a successful tackle 64 times, or 62% of the time for them. So you've got the best team at attacking take-ons against the best team at defending take-ons. It'll be interesting to see which one of those ends up coming out on top. Kiko Seika is still the player with the most goals per 90, despite not scoring since the opening day. She's had 1.24 goals per 90. Obviously, she had a hat-trick on the opening day. She was also the winner of, I think it was Asian Player of the Year recently, which is a great accolade for her and shows that Brighton have got a good player on their hands. One more stat about Brighton is around Maisie Simons and Michelle Agmiang. They are 2 of the 4 players in the league that have appeared as a sub in every game. I've spoken before about how Brighton make the most substitutions, which I think is a very good thing. I think it's one of the reasons why Daria Vidicic is doing very well at Brighton and will continue to do well as the season goes on. but he is relying on some of the same people. Like I say, Maisie and Michelle are coming on in every game without getting starts. It'd be interesting to see what he does with that, if that's something he keeps up, because they've got a pretty good starting 11. You know, they've got good players in midfield and up front in those positions, but he definitely sees those players as finishers, I think, are the technical term that gets used nowadays, or people that end the game basically and come on and have the impact. One stat for Leicester I wanted to highlight was around CJ Bott, because she has made the most tackles in the league this season with 21 and has made the most interceptions with 13. She's a player that's not the only one, but is doing really well defensively for Leicester and is that sort of shining light for them in that state. Now, how do I think this game's going to go? Well, I think Brighton will be the better team, but Leicester, as we know, are very good defensively, and their two goalkeepers, whichever one plays, are both having a really good season so far. I think Brighton probably will win the game, partly because I don't think Leicester will score. I don't think they've scored many goals this season at all, to be honest. I think they'll struggle to score any against quite a good Brighton side. But because Leicester are so good defensively, I don't think Brighton are going to run away with it. So I'm going to predict a 1-0 to Brighton. Also at 2 o'clock on Sunday is a match at Selhurst Park as Crystal Palace host Man City. This one is also live on YouTube. I believe Poppy Pritchard, who is on loan at Palace from Man City, will be unavailable for this game because she can't face her former or parent club. This is 9th place Crystal Palace against 1st place Man City. Palace doing, I think, quite a bit better than people thought they would. They did very well in the Championship last season, although they hardly ran away with the league. They were very good at goal scoring, but they didn't necessarily win loads more games than everyone else. I think they only won the league on goal difference or by 1 point, something like that. Now, I did a bit of research on this, and as far as I can tell, this is the first time these two sides have ever played each other. So we don't have any historic sort of results to go off. City are unbeaten in each of their 5 WSL games so far this season. Their one draw was against Arsenal away, and they've had 4 wins elsewhere, so pretty good start to the season for them. They've also won their last 7 matches in all competitions and are unbeaten in 10 matches in all competitions. So they're in some pretty good form under Gareth Taylor at the moment. Palace, their form isn't quite so good. We know that they're doing a bit better probably than expected, certainly better than I expected, but they haven't scored at home this season so far and they have conceded 8 goals. So that's not really a record you want to have as you're about to host a Man City team that is A, top of the league, and B, quite good at scoring a lot of goals, with potentially the best striker in the league, definitely, and one of the best strikers in the world. Palace, as I mentioned, are the only team not to score, and they are a team with no points at home as well, so they're yet to pick up even a draw at Selhurst Park or their other ground in Sutton this season. They've conceded the joint most goals with 13, and they've conceded the most at home, as I've said, with 8. No other team has conceded more than 4 goals in home matches so far this season. City, on the other hand, are the only team in double figures for XG, including Bunny Shaw at 2.9 on her own. They've also had the highest expected goal difference at plus 6.1, so they've accumulated 6.1 XG more than they have conceded. Palace are the team at the other end of the spectrum. They have the lowest expected goal difference with minus 6.6. Palace have also conceded the most shots on target with 37, whereas City have had the second most with 30. City have, unsurprisingly, also had the most shots overall with 83, only conceding 37. Palace, unsurprisingly as well, are at the other end of the spectrum. They've had the second lowest number of shots with 43, conceding 81 shots. In terms of the players, City obviously, as ever, have a few players that stand out. Leia Alexandri is up there with her progressive passes. She is the best in the league with 55. Alex Greenwood tops a few metrics. She's had the most touches. She has the best pass completion. In terms of number of passes completed, she has the most passes into the final third and the most passes into the penalty area. Lauren Hemp, being the sort of creative spark that she is, has had the most shots with 19, the most shots on target, the most key passes, the most crosses into the penalty area, and the most shot creating actions with 31. So she's dominating all of those kind of creativity stats, even if she's not necessarily the top scorer in the league, which is joint anyway, Bunny Shaw. I mentioned when I was talking about Brighton about some players that are coming on in every game, and although Crystal Palace haven't made the maximum number of subs in every game, Abby Larkin is one that has been brought on as a finisher and has appeared in every game so far as a sub. In terms of how I think this game is going to go, I think, unsurprisingly, Man City are going to be much the better team. I'd be very surprised if that doesn't happen. If they really get into gear early on, I think they could run away with it as well. Expect it to be at least a couple of goals in each half. So I'm going to go for a 4-0 Man City win. Now, the final 2 o'clock game is at the Gone Group Stadium, or Brisbane Road, as most people know it, in Charlton, which is Spurs hosting West Ham. There are a few players playing against their former club. Obviously, Becky Spencer spent some time at West Ham, as did Martha Thomas, and Shalina Zadorsky was bought by West Ham from Spurs. This is, as I mentioned earlier, a bottom of the half clash, which is quite surprising when you talk about Spurs. I think Robert Villahamn is a fantastic coach and has been doing quite well with them over the last few years, even having lost such great players as your Grace Clintons and your Salim Bazets. But they are languishing down in 8th. I think doesn't necessarily tell the story of about how well they've been playing, and I think you would expect them to be moving up the table as the season goes on. Spurs won this fixture both home and away last season. It was 3-1 when West Ham came to Spurs. It was 1-1 until late on when Jess Naz scored in the 86th minute, and then Drew Spence put the nail in the coffin, as they say, in the 90th minute. Spurs, however, aren't in good form. They've lost the last 3 matches, so they're going to want to be turning that around against the team in West Ham that haven't won a game yet this season. In fact, West Ham are 14 WSL matches without a win now and haven't won away in the WSL in their last 8 games. So they are really struggling for a win this season, probably even more than Spurs, to be honest. And when they're already bottom of the table, and personally they're my favourite to go down this year, that's not something they want to see. 5 of Spurs' 10 goals this season have come in the last 15 minutes of games, so they do leave it late. I've obviously mentioned that 2 of the 3 goals they scored in this fixture last season came in the last 5 minutes. We may well see some late goals in this game this season as well. Alongside Palace, Spurs are the team that have conceded the most goals in the WSL this season with 13. But West Ham aren't exactly the sharpest shooters. In fact, West Ham have accumulated the least XG in this season with 3.5. Spurs, at the other end of the pitch, have had the most shots on target with 31, and they are playing against the team with the lowest shots on target of only 12. Probably goes some way to show why their XG is so low as well, if they're not getting into good shooting opportunities. These are 2 teams, however, that are very good in the air. In fact, aside from Liverpool, who have Sophie Roman-Haug and are obviously way up there in the aerial duels metrics, West Ham have the second most aerial duels, won with 56, and Spurs are only 1 behind on 55. So expect to see some really good aerial duels this weekend in this game. Vivasei is another player I wanted to highlight because she's been involved in the most fouls this season so far, 25. She's committed 14 and drawn 11, which is the most in both of those metrics. No one's committed more than 14 and no one else has committed more than 11. Despite the fact that neither team are in very good form at the moment, I do think Spurs are going to be the better team in this game, and I do think they're going to win it. I don't think they're going to run away with it because I don't think the confidence is there within the club. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 Spurs win. The 4:30 game on Sunday is at Villa Park and live on YouTube. It's Aston Villa against Liverpool, the Missy Bo-Kearns derby, if you will. Villa have drawn both their home games so far this season, and Liverpool have the most draws in the league this season with 3. So could well be another match where the teams are getting stuck in a stalemate. The last time these teams played each other, however, it was not a stalemate. Villa 1, Liverpool 4 was the scoreline back in March. In fact, Liverpool have never lost an away league game at Villa. Villa have not been a team that have got Liverpool's number when they're on the road. Villa are 8 games without a win at home in the WSL, so they're struggling to get full 3 points on the board. Whereas Liverpool are 7 games unbeaten away in the WSL, so they are not a team that is easy to beat when they're on the road. They've only lost away at City and Chelsea since April 2023, so in 18 months. It's only been this year's top 2 that have got the better of them. I mentioned earlier there are 4 players that have appeared as a sub in every game. I've already spoken about 3, and Leanne Kiernan is the 4th one. She's obviously been away on international duty as well, so Unlikely that she's going to have this opportunity to move up into a starting space, but expect to see a sub on at some point in the game. I also mentioned that Liverpool are the team way above for aerial duels this season, and Sophie Roman-Haug is still the player that has the most aerial duels with 32. That is despite not playing at all last time out against Palace. In fact, her 32 is over double the amount of anyone else. Second place in the league is Ueki with 15. Olivia Smith is up there with Vivasai as the player that's drawn the most fouls in the WSL this season. She's obviously not played every single minute. She subbed off at half time against Man City and things like that. So that makes that even the more impressive metric, and shows that teams are targeting her. They see her as a threat and they're wanting to do what they can to stop her. This game, I don't think, is going to be one that will live long in the memory for anyone. I've already spoken about the fact Villa are struggling to win. Liverpool away from home are struggling to lose, but they're also really good at drawing. So I'm going to go for a draw in this game as well. I'm going to put it at 1-1. The final match of game week 6 is 6:45 on Sunday evening, live on Sky Sports and at Goodison Park. It is, I think as Everton dubbed it, the Battle of the Blues, as they are hosting Chelsea. It is a chance for Lucy Bronze, Aggie Beever-Jones and Natalie Bjorn to go back against their former club. However, I don't think it's going to be that close a game. It is 11th in the league. Everton are only not last on goal difference, and they are facing Chelsea, who are second in the league and have won every game so far. Obviously, they've played a game less than most teams. Chelsea have a very good record against Everton. They've won their last 10 WSL games against Everton and are unbeaten in 15. The last time Everton beat Chelsea in the WSL, the number one was Ellie Goulding-Byrne, so that shows just how long ago it was. It was the 1st September 2013. Everton are the lowest scorers in the league, technically with 1 goal, although that was an own goal, so an Everton player is still yet to score in the league. Chelsea, despite not playing as many games as most teams, are still the top scorers in the league with 15. They've also scored the most away goals in the league with 9. No other team has scored more than 4, so double as many. They've accumulated the most XG in away games with 3.9. And they have the best performance against their XG as well with plus 7.1. So that means they've scored 7.1 goals more than their XG would suggest. 14 goals scored, because own goals don't count, against 6.9 XG. Everton, however, are the worst for this stat. Obviously, I mentioned that no Everton players scored, and that is from 4.3 XG. So with the chances Everton have had, you'd expect them to have scored 4 goals so far. There's really something lacking in their finishing this season. In terms of player performance, I want to start off talking about Johanna Rytting-Kaneryd, because she has been fantastic this season. I think, other than maybe Lauren Hemp, she has been the best player in the league. She has the most goal involvements with 5 and the most goal involvements per 90 minutes with 1.43. She has the best performance against her XG with plus 2.5, so she scored 2.5 goals more than her XG would suggest. She's also had the most progressive carries in the league with 28 and the most carries into the box with 15. So she's not only scoring and assisting a lot, but she's also using her dribbling skills to get the ball up the pitch very well. Aggie Beever-Jones is another one I'll highlight because she has had the most shots per 90 in the WSL this season with 5.23 and the most shots on target per 90. So she's taking a lot of shots and getting them on target as well. But the fact that she's only getting these per 90 and not overall probably shows that she's not getting as much pitch time as she maybe could do. Obviously, Chelsea have other priorities. They have Champions League and things like that. So they do have a lot of rotation, probably more than any other team in the WSL. So not overly surprising. And I'm sure with some Champions League experience as well, Aggie Beever-Jones won't be too disappointed in that. Mara Ramirez was another one I wanted to highlight as well, because she has had the most goal-creating actions in the league this year with 5. That, again, is a stat, a bit like Johanna Rytting-Kaneryd, that you would expect someone to have when they have played the most matches in the league this year. So Chelsea not only have played a game less than everyone else, but they also rotate their squad a lot. So for these players, getting these, or being the number one player in these stats is even more impressive. Now, I don't want to be too controversial here, but I think Chelsea are going to win this game. Everton are struggling to score at the best of times, never mind coming up against Chelsea. It's just going to be a case of how many goals are Chelsea going to score. I don't think this is going to be the game where Everton get their first, an Everton player gets their first goal of the season, so they're going to be on 0, and I'm going to put Chelsea at 3. So a 3-0 win for Chelsea this weekend. So that is your lot. That is a little preview game by game of the matches coming up on Sunday. Thank you, listener, for tuning in to Decoding the WSL once again. If you enjoyed today's episode, do make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It also really helps if you can give us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping others find the show. You can also join the conversation. Stay up to date by following us on Instagram at Decoding the WSL. That is new, if you are aware of this. There is a new page on Instagram for the pod. And you can also join the discussion over on our new subreddit, which is r/Decoding the WSL. For even more stats and insights, you can follow me at Stattorino on X, Instagram and Threads. I also post on TikTok very occasionally. If you want to get in touch, do drop a message on socials, so at me or drop into my DMs, or you can send an email to decodingthewslpod@gmail.com. I always love to hear your thoughts and your questions and anything like that you've got to input with. But yeah, thank you for joining me, listener. I hope you have a good, well, I was going to say Wednesday, because it's Wednesday as I'm recording, but I presume it will probably be Thursday or maybe Friday, maybe even Saturday by the time you listen to this. So have a good day, whatever you're doing. Thanks again for listening, and I'll speak to you at the next one.